Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the afternoon session of our webinar organized by OTE, which is to inform you about the innovated solution of the intraday and balancing market with regulation energy. This afternoon, Peter Buńka from CGI will acquaint you with Launch Manager and the financial security functionalities. Mrs. Brzeńkowa then will take over, and she'll be talking about the new form of reporting and trade settlement. So, without further ado, I hand over the floor to Mr. Buńka. Good afternoon, my name is Peter Buńka. I represent the CGI company, and I'm going to walk you through the Launch Manager and the risk hedging procedure. I'll describe the Launch Manager, what are the client application network requirements, what is changing in risk management. Then we will touch upon the life cycle of orders. We will describe the setup of different parameters using web-based services. Launch Manager is the heavyweight client which is installed as an application on station. The functionality is basically pretty minimum. It is there just to survey new versions of the trading application, set them up, and enable the launching thereof. This application can be installed without the rights of installation, and it is installed into the user profile. If it is installed by the administrator, then it is directly installed into different files. After launching the Launch Manager, the administrator changes the list of available versions online, does the download manually, and can delete them manually. If the updates and new versions are published, then the users are aggregated locally. Well, they've got to delete individual versions. For every environment, an individual version of the application is available. For instance, the application for the testing environment. For the production environment, there's going to be yet another version which will have to be installed. So the user will not make an error and will know whether they are running under the testing or production environment. What is important for launching the Launch Manager are the network settings. Primarily, Launch Manager is accessing as well as a trade application to servers, viewers, internet, search engines through HTTP and HTTPS. So you'd be using a proxy service in Launch Manager. This setup for accessing HTTP is then taken over by the trading application. What is there in addition compared to the classical approach, and what the company networks are not ready to, is the direct access to EP servers, AMQP. So the station where the trading application is running on, you've got to have the direct connection available. So this must be provided for by every user before launching the trading client. I'd like to go back to the question which was posed before the lunch break, and that is what platforms are going to be supported. So the standard is that based on the platforms that the users are accessing from, supported versions are Windows 7, 8 and 10, 32 and 64-bit versions. Still, there is not a problem based on the interests of the users to prepare versions for other platforms as well. But this is really dependent on how many users using other platforms there'll be and whether there is going to be such a request voiced at all. So, next. What are the changes concerning the financial security? Under the current situation, all the financial security is calculated based on the queue for all participants, for all trades. If a request comes for security or synchronization of trades and orders for intraday market in the current or under the current version, it is placed in a queue, and it is only worked upon when it basically queues the line. Another way of management of security comes with the VDT limit. This new type of limits is somehow taken over from the overall limit, current limit. And I'm not talking about the intraday and balancing markets trades. And individual instructions will be calculated individual participants. So there will be no queue, and you will not have to wait in the line, or the request will not have to be waiting in the line. So the calculation of utilization and the intraday and balancing market trades are very quick and will be done in a classical way, and I'm going to be talking about that later on. Setup of the new intraday market and balancing market limits. If the user, after the release, which will be taking place in August, have got their setup, they've got to inform the OTE what limit of the intraday and balancing market limit they want. How much of the overall limit is going to be allocated. It's just about the original setting, initial setting. Then the users will be able to change their limits themselves if they've got an allocated row of the setup of the intraday and balancing market limits. This row will be allocated by authorized person who's got access to the register of core data. Looking at the life cycle of an order, in this instance, the new order, buy order or bid order, comes into the module of financial security. Then there are other parameters intervening in the calculation, such as the parameter price, VAT. The calculation is split into two utilizations, commodity utilization and imbalance utilization. Utilization of commodity is calculated for a participant giving the order, and imbalance utilization is calculated for the participant sending the order if they send the orders further on, and if they send the order to a super body, a super subject, then it is calculated for a super subject. Or super party. Once the utilization is calculated, then you do the comparison with the disposable amount left. That is freely available resources. If the utilization is not higher than the disposable amount or balance, then the instruction is accepted. In the opposite scenario, it is rejected. It can happen that the user has got enough resources, but the party which receives the imbalance doesn't have enough resources left. So the instruction is rejected to the participant, and the available, even though the available resources are sufficient, because the participant doesn't know what the super party has got available. This process is very fast and quick. The user receives the answer after the calculation and comparisons with the available resources, and after the response on the background, the data is synchronized for further treatment or processing. New cell order. This order only differs in the fact that in this instance commodity utilization is only calculated when the price of the order is negative. For bid orders, the situation is the opposite. Another process is the modification of a buy order. In this particular instance, when calculating the utilization for financial security, you take out the remaining modified value and do a new utilization calculation. Cancel of an order. Here the process is quite simple. The original or initial order is released, so the innovation is not rejected. If the order is traded, then it enters the mode of financial security. It is placed in a queue, and then it is okayed to the participant. And the security is only calculated when the moment comes in the queue for the order. And if the participant has got enough available resources, the trade is accepted, and if it is fully accepted, the utilization of instructions is released in the intraday market and balancing market limit. Another example is when the participants don't have enough resources available. In that instance, the release of the instruction is not done immediately, but first of all what you need is to shift the available resources from the intraday and balancing market limit to the overall limit. This is so because the hedging of the limit is always superior or equal to the hedging of the trade. But from this limit to limits, the participant has got lesser leeway for making orders. So if they settle their positions in the limit and need greater leeway for entering orders, they've got to manually change the limits for intraday and balancing market orders. Trade party accepted order differs that the trade is or the order is traded only partially and the utilization is released for the intraday market and balancing markets for the parts which were traded, and the rest stays to be utilized. Reports have also been modified. The current limit status reports now will be featuring the utilization for the intraday and balancing markets, as well as the new limit for the available resources for intraday and balancing markets. The new report, besides that, when it comes to the progress of the history of the financial security of intraday and balancing markets, shows the overview, the historics of the instructions and orders and whether they've been accepted or not, they were released.
Another point is of a technical nature, and it concerns the automatic communication using the current web-based technology. For the new way of trading, there are new messages, and one of the messages is the swapped settings message, which enables the same functionality as was shown on the previous slides. It enables to set a new value for the intraday and balancing market values. We respond using the response, and then we also copy the current state of the limits. So we have the SWOT limit structure for the message. The message is a notification of the conversion of the amount from the intraday or balancing market limit. So the new structure of the SWOT limit change is intended for this. The market participant can be informed about this even in the form of a conventional email message, if this is also activated in the settings. And the last point is the default currency for the intraday market. It says which currency will be used for the settlement of the complete trading. If the market participant does not select any other currency, it will be the same as in the intraday or in the day market. So thank you, that is all on my part. And if I may ask, I will now hand over to my colleague. Good afternoon. So I will once again introduce myself to those who did not join us in the morning. My name is Jana Bzenkova and I'm here on behalf of the Indra company. This afternoon session is following up on the morning session. The morning session was giving a description of the trading screens used in the intraday and balancing market trading. In this afternoon session, I will describe the user settings. User settings which are implemented in our new application. And then we will go through the reports. And the last point on my presentation is the summary of changes which were made in the settlement process, in the intraday market settlement process. Let us move on to the first point on my agenda, and let us start with the user settings in the application for the intraday and balancing markets. The user settings are possible and available for all logged-in participants. There are 3 tabs you can use. On the first tab, you set general settings, general parameters. The first parameter is the language of the application. The default settings are taken over from the operating system on which the application is running. It can either be Czech or English. If the market participant has his operating system in some other language, then English is taken as the default language. Other parameters that can be changed on this tab. It is the numerical format and the date and time formats. In this presentation, I summed up the basic settings for the English and Czech version. Let us first take a look at how we did it in the English language version, so that you know which formats are applied in the English language version. As far as numbers are concerned, we can distinguish between the digital decimal symbol and digit grouping symbol. In the English version we use the decimal dot, and to separate the orders as a digit grouping symbol we by default use a comma. As far as the date and time format are concerned, we distinguish between the so-called short and long version, as is common in the operating systems. It's also taken over from the operating system, but you can switch between them. There are masks which are predefined and can be used as templates. In this instance, you can see the standard version, which is offered as default for the specific language version. If you have the English version running on your system, then the date is shown starting with the month, then day and the year. And we have and the time format is the hours, semicolon and minutes, followed by PM or AM, indicating if it is the morning or afternoon. Another parameter is so-called long date and time format. It's also shown in this presentation. It first starts with the name of the day, and then the month, and the sequential number of the day is follows. And the last version that we can set in this part concerns the date again, and it in fact concerns the opening of the first day of the week. in the English version it's Sunday by default. And in the other part I would now like to make you familiar with the settings in the Czech version. In Czech we use the comma as a decimal symbol, and we use a gap as a digit grouping symbol, and then we also distinguish between the short and long date and time version. The short one starts with the day, then the month follows, and then the year, and the time format is using the 24-hour cycle. So 4 p.m. in the afternoon is indicated as 16 hours. And the long date is shown here as well on the presentation. It starts with the number of the day, then the whole name of the month follows, and then the year. And the time format, the long one, is the same as in the English version. The screen also contains examples showing your selections. So the user can very simply immediately see in which format the data will be displayed. On each tab there is a confirmation button for accepting the change. And the second tab enables to set the trade settings or trade parameters. This tab includes 5 parameters. The first is called action confirmation. So it says if the confirmation of operations is required. By default it is, as we showed it in the morning session. So if you, for example, want to apply a functionality which changes something on the trading screen, for example you create or modify an order, or for example you enter an order with a counterparty, and then a confirmation dialog shows up by default, which is in fact a security measure, so that the market participant is always forced to double check his action before he or she submits a change to the system. As I said, this parameter is predefined, so that's why it's assumed that the dialog will pop up, but you as the market participant can deactivate this parameter and the confirmation window will not pop up. Another parameter on this tab is the automatic saving of the screen layout. As we showed in the morning, and this option is suitable for those users who change the layout of the trading screen, or who, for example, adjust the individual panes. By default, the automatic saving of the screen layout is activated. As soon as you change the appearance of the trading screen according to your needs, then you do not have to save it manually afterwards. As soon as you switch the application off, the settings you made will be saved and restored again after you open the application next time. So it can be that every market participant has a different look of their trading screen, and the system also knows that. If you want to restore the default layout, then it's enough to use the right click of the mouse and then you can restore the default settings of the screen again. It was 2 parameters which are activated by default, and another 3 parameters are deactivated by default, and they are closely interconnected. It is toggle switches, saying whether the market participant wants the orders to be deactivated after the client is disconnected, or after there is some inactivity on the client's appliance or device. Or then you can also set a timeout limit for the disconnection when the system is idle. The timeout is by default set for 30 minutes. If you launch an application and do not make any single change, if you do not click actively on the screen, and then after 30 minutes the system will be disconnected. The system will think that you have not used or you have not been using the system. So if the orders deactivation due to a client inactivity is activated, and then a few minutes before the 30 minutes lapsed, 5 minutes before, you will be warned about the fact that the timeout limit will be exceeded soon. So you still have the time to change it, for example, just to click or to close the warning, and then the timeout starts running again from the very beginning. So you have another 30 minutes. By default, the orders are stored in the system even if you disconnect, or when some technical problems occur and when you are disconnected immediately. This is what the parameter 3 determines. But you can also, for example, specify that your active orders are then deactivated. As we showed in the first part of this presentation, it does not mean that the orders would be deleted. They remain recorded in the order book, but they are withdrawn from the trading and are not offered anymore. At this moment, they are no longer, they cannot be handled anymore. These parameters are used to determine the behavior of the screen. This last slide concerning the user settings shows the last screen where the user parameters can be defined for order limits. The bottom part of the pane is an illustration of the screen. You can see that we have 3 parameter tabs here: common or general parameters, trade user parameters, and user parameters of order limits. And this pane is empty by default, so no user parameters are determined which would limit the price or quantity in the individual markets. The standard limitation is at the level of the product, and we already said at the beginning of the presentation that the basic thresholds were set for the electricity intraday market. These parameters are standard for each market and applicable to all contracts which are generated on the basis of these products and traded later on. However, the users can use this screen to set their own user limits, which in fact are something like a watchdog. If you want to have a warning that you exceeded, or for example did not exceed a specific limit, and then you are also informed about it thanks to these parameters. The warnings are twofold. So first, the field is shown in orange and an information or a message pops up describing what happened. The message is only for guidance purposes only, so if you click it away and then you can continue working. It only says that, for example, a user limit or, for example, an order limit was exceeded. These settings enable us to define the limits separately for the intraday market and for the balancing market, independently from each other. As soon as we introduce an empty row, which is done by this plus symbol, then a new line is inserted with no values. In the market type, you must first select if it is the intraday or balancing market, and if you select the market type, then the currency is automatically populated, which is the same for each, or which is constant for the individual market types. The balancing market is traded in the Czech crowns and the other one in euros. After we inserted a row for a specific market type, we can define the minimum bid price and the maximum ask price and the maximum order quantity. We can define the parameters specifically, or only some of them or all of them, but we are not able to save the line without having populated at least one of the values. And the default setting is derived from the access rights of the market participant to the individual trading and markets. For example, if you are only allowed to trade in the intraday market, you can then set the values for the intraday market only.
Another setting or option which is available in the new application for intraday and balancing markets is the assignment of products. As I mentioned a while ago, the basic access for trading on individual markets is governed by access rights defined in produce module. When a participant has got the access rights for either the two markets or one of them only, he is not restrained in the access to contracts which are comprised in this kind of market. So if the user has an access to the intraday market, automatically they've got the access to the hourly products of the intraday markets. If they have the access to the balancing markets, they've got the access to the hourly contracts which are on the hourly basis and concern the plus and minus regulation and the positive and negative. This option is there to regulate the access of individuals, registered participants, to individual types of contracts. This option is there available only to the registered market participant entity which has got the authorization for managing the accesses of other persons. Those who do not dispose of this right would not have this possibility, this option in the menu. They cannot select it. So authorized entity which has got the right to set up the access for other registered market participants, so automatically this digit is filled, and if there's no restriction, then this list would be basically empty. In our case, in our instance, we will see that this test participant disposes of two individuals defined. One has got the access to the intraday market, and for balancing market they only have access to the negative regulation energy 1 hour product. So there is a restriction for this individual, and they cannot trade on the balancing market with products with positive regulation energy. Now we open another issue, and that is reports. Reports represent an individual separate option in the menu for intraday markets, and in the second set you got the reports for the balancing market. These systems are conceived in the similar way as you are used to them in the current application, but there are some differences in the first option. In the new application for the intraday and balancing markets, there's a new thing, and that is the list of traded contract. And you as participants, you can use the reports of contracts for the given day. This list gives you information about what contracts are there in the system and what is their status. Well, the default parameter is delivered day from to, then hour and product are not selected, and the user set them up. What does it mean? If you choose this report, you will see the list of all the contracts which were generated on the given market or are in a different status. So you will see in detail, well, you can click on individual lines and get detailed information about the status of the given contract and what is the list of their live events as planned in time or over time. So first the contracts are generated. This is automated. It is done automatically by the system. Then they are listed over a given time. So you can place inactive orders in relation with them. And then when the trading opens, the given contract is visible on the trading screen, and you can place active orders connected to this contract. Another report, the reports based on the delivery day in all the conditions as set by the given user into the system. The parameters are similar. Our product shape, our product in the instance of the intraday market, as well as the order state. This status is quite interesting because you can filter out a list of orders in a certain stage. So you've got different stages. Either it is active or inactive, or it can be activated again, then it can be deleted if you annulate it manually, or is closed. Closed means that the order was either traded or the validity expired and was withdrawn from trading. This gives you an overview of all the orders and statuses of their life cycles, so you can use this report to give or to get a view of all the individual statuses and stages of the given order. Another report is trades by delivery day. Here you see all the trades which were closed over a defined time span, again based on your parameters, which are standard: delivered day from 2, hour, and product type. Next, the following report is results. This report displays an overview of aggregated quantities with respect to individual contracts after they were created. There is only one parameter, and that is the delivery day from 2. In this report, quantities are aggregated which are traded by all the participants. So this is the result of the overall market. Otherwise the results or the reports would show only the data concerning the participant which is logged in. So reports of offers or orders and trades to be seen and depicted concerning only the participant which is logged in, whereas here you see the results of the overall market aggregated or split into different hours of trading. For the participant to have an overview of their trades, it's the last report to be used. It is also aggregated in function of trading hours or contracts, and the parameter here is also the delivery day from 2. Let's go to the balancing market reports now. These reports are pretty similar. They concern a different market, of course, so you see there a difference because we are working with 2 types of contracts, and that is hourly contract for negative regulation energy and hourly contract for positive regulation energy. You can filter out the orders, transactions, results in function of what kind of project we want to see. So the report which is there is similar to what we've seen. We see a list of contracts, bids for delivery day, of trades for by delivery day, which only show the trades and offers of the participant which is logged in. Then we have the reports of results for all participants, so these are aggregated for individual contracts. It will be defined individually for the positive and negative regulation energy respectively. The last report is the report of results by market participant. It also displays an overview of aggregated trading results for a logged-in market participant. And the bottom part shows you how the report looks like. We could now probably speak how it is used. In the upper part of the panel you would have the section called parameters. This section can be hidden and rolled out, where you've got a delivery day from, delivery day to, and the hour and the product type. If it is the balancing markets case, you've got RE plus, RE minus, or all possibilities or options. So you can feature this report without the restriction of type of product. Then you will be able to retrieve the values of the report according to the parameters selected. In this part you see the items, and the default setting is 20. You can enlarge it, and this report can comprise up to 100 lines. Every report can be exported into an output file. Once we decide about the parameters, we upload the data into the report, we click on this icon and a dialog window will appear. You can then export the type and the content of this report into a file of your choice. Then there's a selection option available. You click on individual columns and you can classify the report according or in a given number of columns selected. You can define a number of columns for the report to be classified, and this is a general functionality which works in the instance of all the reports within the system. Now we are reaching the part dealing with the changes on intraday market settlement. Currently, on the current market, there was no separate settlement of this market, but with this new functionality, what is new, or what is introduced, is the settlement execution for the intraday market. So a new version of settlement called daily settlement is introduced, daily settlement of the intraday market. This settlement will be done every day at about 10 a.m. for the day -1 on the standard basis. So for the trading day, for this trading day, the settlement will be only done the day after. Here you see the graphical representation of the individual processes involved. Here we see the trading process of the intraday market from the issuance of the first contracts until the closing of the last contract. So here we see individual contracts, how they are issued at a given moment, and throughout the trading session they are being closed. When the last order contract is closed for the given delivery date, then the daily settlement can take place, which is planned for the following day. After the settlement is done, then you can do the settlement of imbalances. So this settlement follows the settlement of the intraday market in electricity. Concerning the settlement of the intraday market, there are two concepts which are settled. First is the fee settlement, and second it's the purchase and the sale settlement on this kind of market, which is a new feature of this application. As I've mentioned, once this settlement takes place, then the settlement of imbalances follows, and as it was the case, it is a link to the aggregation of data from the SDS. So once this data is available, then the imbalance settlement can be done, and this new settlement concepts are included in all the versions of imbalance settlements which are available and offered in the system. So daily imbalance settlement and monthly or weekly and monthly imbalance settlement is calculated, and this is basically the same principle as would figure in the instance of all the other markets. Settlement results are available in the following reports. First, the result of settlement results. There's a new version in the application. So if you go through the results of settlement, a new version of the settlement will be available. So you can only watch or display the results of the intraday market. Our breakdown of settlement results comprises also a new version. And the last reports is daily payments, and the modification there means that the daily payments are aggregated according to the settlement currency. As we said, you can set the settlement currency, and this report reflects this reality and aggregates the data in this report according to the currency selected, or settlement currency selected.
Now we could briefly demonstrate how to make the settings in the application itself. So now there are other options in the application as well called reports and settings. Let us first take a look at the settings. These settings are on 3 tabs. The first tab is called Common User Parameters. Here we can select the language, the decimal symbol and digit grouping symbol, and also the time and date formats. I will now switch it to the Czech language. If I select Czech, then the other fields are populated depending on the language, because there are some default settings depending on the language selected. You can see that the Czech version uses the comma as decimal symbol, or the space as digit grouping symbol, but I can select a different symbol myself. It's rather unfortunate because I now have both the same symbol both for the decimals and the digit grouping. But now you can see immediately how it would be displayed in reality. So here we can select the date format, or the time format, etc. And for each of the tab we have to click the Save button separately. So if I want to save these settings, I must click on the button here at the bottom. The open tabs will remain in the same settings in which they were opened. So you can see that the menu is no longer in English, but now it's in Czech. So let us return to the English version again. Then the default settings are restored depending on the English version, and then I click on Save. If we open the tab again, then it's again shown in English in the last version selected. These are the parameters we described before. As I said, action confirmation is activated by default when it is deactivated, and then the system should not require me to confirm the actions I execute. This is the timeout, which is set for 30 minutes. So if there is no activity for 30 minutes, and then the system disconnects you, and the longest period you can put in here is 120 minutes. And these parameters can remain unticked. So the bit deactivation can be deactivated. and then again you save it by clicking on the Save button. This is a standard situation when there are no user limits, so we may try and set some. In the empty line, we select the market type, then the currency is populated depending on the market type, and we can, for example, enter the maximum quantity. Now we can try and see how it behaves in the application. We can take advantage of the situation that there are new details in the market overview. It is contracts which had been issued, but they can't be traded yet. But we can, for example, place inactive orders here. And there is a slight difference here as compared with the balancing market, where these inactive orders wouldn't be displayed at all, because they would distract your attention and the market overview pane wouldn't be easy to orient yourself in. We usually show here the 1 hour period, so you can also select only the issued contracts, and at this moment no contract is open for trading. But if we click here, we can see the contracts issued, which will be traded later on in the future. And so some inactive orders might be placed for these contracts at this moment. So let us return to this market and let us demonstrate how we can restrict the quantity. When entering the quantity, we receive this message that the limit was exceeded. We can ignore it, or we can adjust the quantity to meet the limit value. We can demonstrate it by using a mass order. You can see that the fields in which the limit was exceeded are shown in a different background color, and if we submit it, we also receive a warning message and we can respond to it as we wish. The minimum and maximum price parameters behave in the same way. At this moment we have no limit for the balancing market here, but if we want to, we can also add a line and add some parameters for the balancing market as well. If you choose the balancing market, then the currency remains Czech crowns, which is the default value for the balancing market. Now let us go to the balancing market. Oh, sorry, I forgot that I can't demonstrate the usage of this limit at this moment. Maybe for an inactive order only. Okay, let us go to the reports now. By default, today's date is set here. We can see a list of all contracts, and we can set to see all contracts to a maximum of 100. After clicking on the line, you see the detail in the bottom part of the screen. This contract for 2 p.m. was already finished, and all events on this contract were executed. When we click on the 3 p.m. contract, we see that the contract was issued, trading started, but the trading has not been completed yet. So the trading will be finished in 1 minute, so you can see the status of the contract. And these parameters are taken over from the product, and they are the same for all contracts. We can see the minimum and maximum quantity here, the minimum and maximum price, and the price and quantity tick. And this is data filtered for 1 hour only. It shows the current contract for the intraday 1 hour product. Now let us take a look at the orders by the delivery date. So by default, this date is pre-selected. We can see the participant number. This parameter cannot be changed, so you are not allowed to view anybody else's orders, just your own ones. For instance, this shows the versions which this order had and the states. For example, it was first active, then it was closed. The reports for the intraday market are the same. I will show the contract, which can be filtered by the type. We see the total number of records displayed. It is 24 records or 24 items for the positive regulation energy. And 24 items for the negative regulation energy. But by default, all products for all product types are shown in the pane. At this moment, I would like to say goodbye to you. Once again, we received a question from one participant, and the question concerned the entry of the iceberg order, and the user wanted to know how the peak quantity is displayed if the order is traded, so that you know how the remaining quantity is traded. We would like to demonstrate it once again and to explain it to the audience. We open the trading screen of the intraday energy market. We select a contract where we would like to trade something. We have opened the contract for 9 p.m. and we can see that we can have 3.21 megawatts for €3.10. we create a sell order of the iceberg type, and for example we want to sell a quantity of 100 megawatts at, so we'll now enter the same price because we want it to be traded, so €3.10. It's iceberg and we want the peak quantity to be 25 only, so that only 25 is offered for trading. Then the order is submitted to the system and only 25 megawatts will be offered for trading at €3.10. Sorry, by a mistake I entered €310 instead of €3.10. And as a trader I would like to conduct a trade of 100 megawatts and I want 20 megawatts to be offered first, and after the first 25 are traded and then another 25 should be offered. Now I submit the order to the system and I can see that the buy which was offered here now disappeared. I answered the ask at the same price as the bid was, and the iceberg order is now shown here. Only 4 megawatts out of the only 4 out of the 25 are still on offer for the sell. And the last trade conducted was worth €3.10 and the quantity was 25 megawatts. It's also shown here in this pane, in the own orders pane. It shows that the entered iceberg order is still offered in the quantity of 4 megawatts and 79 are still remaining, and the 79 can be offered again after the first 4 or after the remaining 4 are traded. And this is how the iceberg orders are placed. So I think we can consider this question answered and clarified. Should you have other questions, so please send the questions to the market operator then. At this moment I would like to thank the presenters in this afternoon session. So we are well ahead of time and we have now moved on to the point Q&As. We received questions from you by email at the address Spot Markets. At this moment I have here the authors of this application and my colleagues, and we will try to answer the questions you emailed to us. If we need consultation for the question, then we will send the answer by email, and we are also ready to publish the questions and answers within the documentation on our public homepage, so that the questions and answers are accessible to anybody. Let us move on to the first question sent. The first question was, will it be possible to use one certificate for the login for several entities? Mr. Buńka from CGI will answer. One certificate is for one user and for one entity, and the same rule applies to the CZ portal, and the same rule will be applied to the intraday and balancing market portals. So you will need more certificates for several connections. Another question is following up on this. It's a question concerning the certificate again.
Is it possible, in order to access the application in OTCon, use the certificates which we've been using to use for access to CS OTE portal? Yeah, well, basically the answer I provided is the answer to this as well. The registration is the same. The certificates which you got registered today will be used in order to access the intraday market application or the OTE application. Next question reads as follows. The orders from the intraday markets automatically will not be transferred into the balancing market as it used to be the case. And now I'll try and give you the answer. Yes, it is the case. So the intraday market application is separated from the application for the balancing market. So this functionality of automatic transfer from the intraday market orders to go to the balancing market application will no longer be there. So these applications will be clearly separate. Next question. We've heard that the testing should start on the 1st of August until the 14th of August, and the system will be started on the 24th of August without a parallel operation. Can we have more time available or postpone the date of the go live of the system? Allow me to answer this question myself. Precisely, the testing will be taking place between the 1st and the 14th of August. The testing with the market participants, and the go live for production should take place in the night of the 23rd of August, so that the first trading could start and take place the 24th of August without the parallel operation. I can only say that we will do our utmost to meet this timetable, and we appeal to you to maximally use the options and possibilities which are there during the testing phase with the market participants, so that you master the application yourself without any doubt, to be able to place the orders and get to know what the functionalities provided by the new system. And here we are here to remove all the inconsistencies and errors which may be found, so that the go live is secure and reliable. I'd like to sum up the implementation timeline for you, what steps are awaiting us. As we've heard, the test phase with the market participants is to take place between the 1st of, or starting on the 1st of August. Some organizational housekeeping information. Of course, we will be informing you in advance, and we will provide all kinds of information for you to reach successful testing, which is as beneficial for you as possible. After the testing phase, we'll do an in-house evaluation, and the go live is expected on the 23rd of August, and we should really go live in terms of operation on the 24th of August this year. I've also mentioned that we will try and send you a testing scenario in a sufficient advance. I'd like to ask you for your cooperation. Should you have any questions or comments, remarks, please send them to this email address, which we are using. A quick question which we've just received. Where the setting up of the parameters which will be used for trading in the application is going to take place. Now, we need to use the basic trading screen of the platform. You've got the registration of the core data, and in this column you will be changing your required values so that the testing and the production parameters meet your needs and requirements, so that you can trade smoothly on the new platforms. This is important. This link between the current platform or existing platform and the application which you will be using later on. So this link stays here unchanged. As we've exhausted all the topics, all the points which we were to cover, I'd like to thank all the presenters. I'd like to thank you for your attention, and I wish you a lot of luck during the testing, and I wish you every trading success when using the new applications. When it comes to all the important steps linked to the Go Live, you will be informed about them in advance, and we are looking forward to cooperating with you in the future. So thank you, good luck, and have a nice afternoon. This is the end of today's webinar.